Right, guys, we are live again for another episode, or basically what we're going to do is debunk what we've heard in the previous episodes before. So on this podcast, what we're going to be talking about is the sleep coach, Nick Littlehales, who is an amazing sleep coach, got a fantastic career going through cyclists, top sports personalities, and some notable footballers, to say the least. And yeah, we had the podcast on Friday, and we're going to debunk it a little bit now and give you our takeaways and what we thought. Sometimes it's nice to just get the lowdown in simple English language, because some of these podcasts can go a bit far sometimes with regards to the science and everything they delve into. So we're going to try and debunk it in a normal human way with three normal human beings, one with his hair all messy and a hoodie on. So I'm Dave, I'm with Alex and James, and welcome to this episode. So guys, as we always do, should we just jump in and let's start talking about what we thought? So, Alex, you're to the left of me as we are now, mate. So I'm going to jump onto you. What did you think of the podcast, and what did you take away? Was there any insights for yourself?
Well, I think first of all, what a great guest to have on in terms of the credibility in his space. So, Man United under Sir Alex Ferguson, the England team at World Cup '98, Euro 2004, Team Sky when Bradley Wiggins won the tour, and my beloved Arsenal. I'll whisper very quietly after the weekend. So, I mean, one bit that jumped out at me being an Arsenal fan was when he did go to deliver a bit of a workshop at Arsenal, and he said it didn't go very well. So it's quite nice to hear a bit of honesty. Didn't go to plan. I think there was a few murmurs. You get some young lads with a lot of money taking the mickey, and it was interesting to hear that Thierry Henry, who was, probably arguably our best player at the time, arguably our best player of all time, stood up and told everyone to shut up, basically. And
love that.
For me, that was a massive insight into a winner, someone that searches marginal gains and ultimately got them. So I did love that little story on the back of who he'd worked with. There were some really good take homes. I suppose just a couple that stood out for me massively was him talking in detail about morning and afternoon people.
Chronotypes.
Who operates in which time zone, so to speak, a lot more effectively. So, when it just got me thinking a lot around, myself, my kids, we always try and cram the eldest boy's homework into like 30 minutes before bed. And find it really hard with like, why isn't he just needs to do it because the deadline's tomorrow. So he probably doesn't react best to that. And so, just maybe need to go after this and look a little bit more at people around me and who, even my team at work, who performs best at what times of day. And then, just how the 90-minute cycles transcend into other areas. So, over that, when you go over that threshold, when you've had an interaction for that period of time, it can make you a bit less cohesive and coherent because your body works in 90-minute cycles. So try not to hold a meeting for longer than 90 minutes without a break. I tend not to, but it did make me think, okay, make sure not to. So just some really transferable bits that I can put into my own life, whether that be work or personal. They were two big take homes to kick things off.
Mate. Yeah, brilliant. No, but I agree with you. I love that with regards to just start to look at it from like the kids and the people around, and you can start to unfold certain things, certain habits that people have and where they are. I never thought about that actually, mate. I'm glad you brought that up actually, because I never thought about looking at my kids. I just think why the fuck don't they sleep properly and X, Y, Z, but makes perfect sense. Yeah. What about you, James?
There's so much that Alex has shared there. I just want to pull threads on what Alex has shared. So the AM, PM, AM and PM, as he calls them, I thought that was really interesting because I thought of myself. I'm definitely an AMer, unless it was this AM where my little girl decided not to sleep between 3 and 5 and I was up with her. So then I become less of an AMer and more just angry. But I found that fascinating because I find, I don't know about you chaps, but it gets to the evening and unless something's really like on my mind, like really in my head, it's critical to get it done, I'm like, I'll do it in the morning because I'm not in the clearest headspace. Whereas I know I've got friends that they just can't function before 12 o'clock in the day.
Yeah.
And actually, a bit like what Nick said on the pod, that those players during Alex Ferguson's era, those players were the ones that were probably getting benched a lot. They were the ones that weren't getting in the first team because they weren't like him. Yeah. And so he expected everyone to be up at 4 a.m. and, you know, on it by 5 and everything else. But actually, they're just on a different cycle and they're just wired differently. And I found that fascinating, that actually, is there actual science to back it? I guess there is, but the way in which he explains it, it just makes sense. I thought his transition as well, the way he ended up with Man United, you know, from Slumberland, you know, being the head honcho there to then becoming like a sleep coach at United. And in his own words, not really knowing what he was doing. Knew he had a passion for it. I was like, I love that. He didn't need to be planned out. He just knew it's what he needed to do.
Yeah. No, it is. He's had a right career, hasn't he? I mean, that one thing I think I said in the pod, imagine if he didn't have, he was only there that day because he sponsored the event.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not talking about sleeping, we're talking about business growth, but obviously it comes into all of the dimensions we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, just that in itself.
It's the paths in the road. It's that, like you say, if he hadn't sponsored the club, which was a rare thing in that era, it wasn't common to have, you know, sponsors across the centre of the shirt and all this sort of stuff.
Especially not beds on a football shirt. Can you imagine the stories that were coming out there about them all being lazy and this, that, and you can imagine it, can't you?
Exactly. So yeah, it just the forks in the road that appear through decisions you make in life. It's a completely separate topic, but I found that fascinating.
It was great because there was that. Oh,
sorry, Alex, go on, mate. What were you saying?
No, I was just going to say there was that divide. There was that sort of divide between someone like him who it was more gut feel and learned versus sort of those with clinical knowledge, because there was definitely a sense that he's gone into a role. He obviously had to develop some knowledge of what he was talking about, but he went off feel and watching people and understanding individuals rather than, you know, as he said, the clinical knowledge of people that study it and were still, you know, drinking lots of alcohol, doing lots of things, and, you know, then preaching about how much sleep to get. So that was a really good insight as well.
I think it was. I mean, for me, it completely changed my view on sleep. Like, sleep isn't important. I said it. Sleep isn't important. Recovery is important. And I think what I took away from all of the whole podcast, if I can kind of summarize it in one way, it was I had to take my focus off sleeping a required 8 hours a day and looking more, and it goes right back to what you just said then, Alex, into optimizing myself. So what do you want sleep for? None of this was said in the podcast. This is what I heard from it. So these words haven't been said. And this is purely my judgment call from it. But if you listen to the whole podcast, it'll go into the fact that 8 hours sleep was only ever brought in once the invention of the light bulb came in. Before that, we had very different sleep patterns. And when then you look at, okay, why do we want to, everyone's like really focusing on sleep. We've got to get this 7-8 hours. We've got to get it. Now, what we've not really realized is that we've pushed that into our lifestyle to try and help us optimize a new lifestyle, which is now a 9 to 5. It was never a 9 to 5 previously until the invention of light bulb and corporations and everything else. So if sleep is so important, what's it important for is the question for me. Well, it's recovery. Okay. Do you need to eat all 3 meals in one sitting a day? That's a question that came to me. No, you don't. You eat it throughout the day. How much do you eat? Well, it depends on how hard you're working. If you eat more than the calories you're burning, now we can measure that in certain aspects. We can measure calories in food and calories on output of the exercise. So we can kind of work out where we're going to be at a base level and not gain any weight or lose muscle. But with sleep, that's very difficult. And it's because it's an individual game. So I think the scientists that look at sleep as a thing may be looking in the wrong direction. And we should be looking at how do we optimize ourselves as human beings. And if you listen to this podcast all the way through, what you'll get a picture of, hopefully, is very similar to me, is it's not about you don't need 6 hours at night, 7 hours at night, 8 hours at night. What we need on average, from what we believe, is 30% of our 24-hour period recovering. So you can get that with 2 hours at night, 4 hours at dinner time, and another 2 hours at tea time. There's no definition to it. And I think one of the biggest problems we've got, one thing that was said on the podcast, is worrying about sleep is the biggest cause of not sleeping.
An oxymoron.
So actually, if we took more of a holistic approach to not sleep, but to what we want the sleep for, which is recovery, then we can find that within certain things within the day, like taking a bit of rest, maybe doing a bit of meditation, getting more light exposure, which is going to produce more serotonin in the bloodstream, as opposed to the darkness, which is going to produce melatonin and make you go to sleep. If we start to look at, instead of how do I get more sleep, is there a pill for more sleep? No, none of this exists, because we're looking at the wrong thing. It's not sleep that's important. It's recovery that's important, based on how much you're doing, which brings it back to Alex's observation before. And it's more of a holistic approach of, what are you doing on a daily basis? How much recovery do you need for the output you're giving or creating? And I think that was what really, really opened up my eyes to sleep. And I'm not going to say it again. I get exactly what he says. I don't want to be called a sleep. He's not a sleep coach. He's a recovery coach that has been named a sleep coach by the media. And that there, just in itself, literally completely changed my outlook on what we're doing as human beings. And it was like, fuck me, duh, how come no one else is seeing this? And that's how big of a thing it was for me. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. Anyway, certainly ones who are listening.
You know, so with that, is it more around the states and environments set for periods of the day that you sort
of course it is,
you unwind or recover in? And if your body decides to close its eyes and have a nap at that point, then that's fine, because that's what it's telling you.
Pretty much, if you were to follow the signs of one of the so here's the analogy I'm going to use it from. He said, if I wanted to go to the gym and run 5K, I'm probably going to need some trainers. I'm going to need some gym equipment, maybe a personal trainer, XYZ. We've got to start thinking of what's the goal? And then once we've seen the goal and where we're going, how can we work that back? Very similar to any other type of coaching, business coach, whatever it is. How can we work back and optimize ourselves for that task at hand? So what we should be looking at is, what do we want to create and do in a day? How much recovery is that going to need? And can I put that into my day? So from what I took of it, obviously the sunlight's going to give you the serotonin and really boost things, but little things like, and it depends on your anchor point. Now I've developed a 24-hour clock, and I put it on the group yesterday, just so people can start to have a look, because it's quite difficult on a 12-hour clock to work out 24-hour cycles unless you've got two of them. So we did that. But once you set your anchor points and you can go back, that's pretty much just saying, look, if you set this, you're going to get most of that recovery within that period of time. And it's also going to be optimal to the time you wake up. Now, the time you wake up, in my opinion, should be maybe a couple of hours before your day actually starts working. So if you start working at 9, you should be up and at them for maybe 7 o'clock and starting to do your routine, so that you give yourself some time. But if you just monitor yourself, how do I feel? Do I feel good in this moment in time? Do I feel like I've got energy? If not, you may need some more rest. And it's about optimizing yourself for the tasks that you're doing ahead, and making sure that you're getting enough rest cycles in, enough light, so that your circadian rhythm is working, so that you get the nice nod off bit at nighttime. So it's more of a holistic approach than a one-off, because I work X amount of hours a day. I mean, there's 3 guys here now who've all got very, very similar jobs, very similar roles, and we all work completely differently. We're all completely different characters. So how can you have a one-tip solution that's going to fit all of us? Especially when most of the sleep problems are mental.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm sitting here thinking as you're saying it there. So I've mentioned, obviously, Margot, she's turning 2 in February. She's going for a sleep regression in it. So in the middle of the night, I was up with her. So at 3 o'clock, I was up with her. We went to bed at 10:30. She's up at 3. So if I then think about those 90-minute cycles, that I've gone through 3 cycles, and I'm just thinking about how I felt when she woke up. I felt very awake. I found it really hard to go back to sleep. I wasn't tired. I could have got up, but because I suppose it's not socially acceptable to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I could have got her back to sleep and probably gone downstairs, read for a bit. I was in that kind of headspace where I felt quite alert and quite awake, but instead I forced myself to go back to bed. And actually feeling quite groggy now. I'm feeling quite, I'm in the middle, of doing bits and pieces, but I could probably do with having a power nap or some sort of boost of sleep. But then there's other days, like the day before, went to bed Sunday night, probably, I think again, about 10:30. I got up at 4:45 and I felt great. Went for a walk, gym, and it's that 2-hour window you're then talking about. I had that 2 hours where I went for a walk, went to the gym, walked back, and I felt good. I was good for the day. Whereas this morning, because of that break and then going back to bed and forcing myself to go back to sleep, I've woken up feeling sluggish and like my head's not in the right space because the kids are up. The house is hectic. And I'm like, right, I just need a minute to focus. So I totally hear what you're saying. There's going to be different needs at times for different people.
100%. I mean, but just for an interesting one now, I'm imagining that you told yourself a story at 3 o'clock this morning. And the story was that it's not acceptable to get up at this time for whatever reason that may be. But what's the problem in getting up at that time?
There isn't one.
There isn't one, other than the forced expectations we've put on ourselves to deliver for the following day.
Yeah.
But in a position you're at now, say, okay, well, I woke up at 3, I felt all right, so I cracked on and did something. I bet you'd have been more productive as a human being to do something within that time period, maybe not off at 6 till 7, and then maybe come home and have a little power nap at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. And so as opposed to just only the thought process of this isn't the right thing to do, what's wrong with it?
It's true, isn't it? It is true. Like when you actually start to unpack it and you think about, like, I'm very much an AM person. I think you are very much similar. But you look at a great famous person that springs to mind that is probably a bit more nocturnal is Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah.
He's openly said on a number of his podcasts with guests like Nick that he is someone that generally will sleep in.
Yeah.
But he'll be up. Because of the way in which he operates. But the way he functions, he doesn't conform to normal society's norms. And so a lot of people look at that and go, think about childhood. I don't know about you, but if ever as a teenager, I can remember it vividly. If I was in bed, gone 8 o'clock in the morning, my dad was on me.
Yeah.
Like, get up. But I'm a teenager. You go through that cycle. I probably didn't go to sleep till 2 o'clock that morning.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting with Stephen Bartlett. I mean, we probably have to get him on some point, but he was obviously working for quite a number of years in different time zones, America, Asia. So again, that body has probably got used to a different cycle.
It does. Yeah. I mean, it's like you guys know, I spent most of my earlier years traveling all around over Asia, America, Europe. I was constantly in different time zones. So God knows what my chronotype is. I've actually got a question on that as well. I'd love to ask him with regards to the chronotypes and changing them. So if it's chronotypes and it's based on genes, I mean, we're constantly evolving and developing. And what is it? Is it 9 months or something? A complete gene rejuvenation within your body? I'm sure it was a stat. I think Ian came up with it. There's a period of time where actually every cell in your body is renewed within a period of time. So you're actually a completely new person. So I think that you may well be born with a particular chronotype, but I have got a feeling that he did say you can change it. I don't know whether it would revert back. I think evolution would dictate that once you changed it, it'd stay there unless you changed it again, or circumstance around your daily routine change. So if I had to then start working night shifts, then I'd have to change it. Or if something within my day needed to change, again, it's down to, I put one word on the group before, you don't know if you saw it, was just optimization. And I just thought, you know what, this word is so powerful with everything we're trying to research, talk about, show people. It's all down to optimization. How do we optimize ourselves as humans to be the best fathers, business owners, workers, whatever that is? And I think that what we need to be doing is to start looking at all of this stuff that we've been talking about, the sleep, the nutrition, the exercise, and starting to look at how can we put this into more of a holistic and optimized way for you, whoever's listening to this, and how you can start to think about how can you optimize your day so that you can get the maximum output of them good feelings or whatever that may be. And I think that with the podcast like the one we've just done, it really highlights some of this type of stuff. And then when you look back and start to take the little snippets of all of the experts we've been talking to and these professionals, there's this underriding thing that, okay, this is about optimizing for you. It's not everyone needs to do 50 press-ups a day. Everyone needs to do 50 sit-ups, X, Y, Z. It's a case of what do you need to do within your day or your 24 hours to make sure you're optimizing it so that everything else falls in line with regards to balance and your work life and your relationships and your kids and everything else. So yeah, massive.
You're completely right. And what I'm getting from it is how, like, more and more we speak to these people is how individual everyone is and how bespoke the needs are. I remember Dimitri talking about protein consumption and ultimately, you know, it being a 10 times your body weight or in proportion to how much you exercised or worked out. I mean, that's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah.
I just look, you know, for me, I've stayed away, you know, we look at the dimensions of health, and we've got our own 8 dimensions, but I'd stayed away from sleep.
Yeah.
Because I've got 3 young children, you know, all 6 and under, all like hate sleep. or as I should now say, are whether it would be AM or PM, depending on which ungodly hour it is.
Yeah.
And I'd sort of almost stayed away from the conversation because I was like, I'm just never, you know, this is one part of my life I can't do anything about because it's sort of being dictated to me. But you look at it more now and you think, okay, well, how can I optimize myself to be able to perform best, knowing that there's going to be some uncontrollables at different points of the day? And my 4-year-old boy, he will be up. He'll be dressed and up at like 5 o'clock most days. And for a long time, our reaction was always, get in bed. What are you doing up? You know, our alarm hasn't gone off. How dare you? And the more, you know, I got to a point a little bit more recently where I was like, you kind of don't want to have a go, you know, a child about that, you know, waking up at that hour, because actually what do we crave later in life? We crave the 5 a.m. club, we crave that morning time. And I'm just thinking, wow, got to almost get up and work with him on it. You know, what can we do in this time?
Well, hopefully the good thing is if he's a really, really early riser, with a bit of luck, he's not a ridiculously late sleeper. So he'll go bed a little bit better than other ones. That's what you'd hope. But I think the question for you is, like you say, how can I optimize it? Maybe it's you can diarize that you put an hour in midday somewhere or half an hour for just to go in a dark room and just relax, just turn the light off and just think of nothing. You don't have to do nothing in that half an hour. And that in itself is going to help. Maybe go outside and spend 15 minutes walking in the sunshine to top up the levels of serotonin, which is going to stop you feeling more fatigued. It's going to stop you feeling fatigued and give you that boost to continue through your day. So we're looking at things here. There's a few things we're looking at with regards to the sleep and the light zone. So we're talking about recovery periods and restful periods, but then we're also talking about serotonin, which is getting you up. So these are like your little bite-sized snippets of sunshine. You know, you're snacking on sunshine is what I think I said, didn't I? You're snacking on this sunshine. Go out for 10 minutes, get the energy levels up, because you know you've been fatigued because you've been up in the night. But it's about planning something that you can work with. And I hope that the listeners who are listening to this can take this away. You know, there was a lot said in that podcast. I think it was like near 2 hours long. There was a hell of a lot in there. But if you can take away, optimize your day. If you can take away snacking on the sunshine and getting those little hits of serotonin and that feel good feeling, and then working on a holistic approach to, okay, well, look, I've got kids 3 out of 5 days a week. I'm up at 2-3 in the morning. If you know that's happening, perfect. Start to plan it, because I guarantee you now, you ain't changing your kid waking up. But what you can change is how you feel about your kid waking up. What you can change is the levels of energy you've got throughout the day if you optimize and you start putting some of these things in. So, yeah, for me, amazing podcast that was.
I must admit, there was a bit like you, Alex. There's like snippets from every episode that I've kind of gone, yeah, that that's a bit of a rewiring. I think some of the conversational topics that have come up have been about a bit of a rewiring. And what I mean by that is it's that socially accepted norm that 8 hours is the optimal. And even the word is used, isn't it? The optimal amount of sleep that a person could need is 8 hours a night. Yeah. When in actual fact, like what gets measured gets improved, right? So I wear one of them, a Whoop strap, yeah. And I've had nights where I've slept for less hours, but I'm better recovered than longer periods of time, just because of the way my sleep cycle has fallen. I also take a product just before I go to sleep that if I take it, my REM sleep, my deep sleep is so much better. My awake time on the Whoop is so much lower. Yeah. But last night I didn't take it. I forgot to take it before I went to bed. Just so happened that I should have given Margot some. But the point being is that even my actual REM and deep sleep that I did have while I was asleep was so much lower because I didn't take this product. That helps optimize my sleep. And but it also comes back to, like, for you, Alex, how would it feel for you, and be honest here, if you've had a bad night's sleep, you feel a bit fatigued, and you think, do you know what, 11 o'clock, I'm just going to have a 20-minute power nap, and I'm going to go in my office, I'm going to tell the team that I need 20 minutes. That would feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a bit of social acceptance of it as well.
Social norms, right? So, but the view I take is that actually, if people understood the benefit of that 20-minute nap, you're going to be a better leader, a better manager, a better supportive character. Yep. You're going to be more optimized to deliver after that 20-minute power nap, if that's what's helped. But socially, if your boss walked past and saw you were having a nap, he'd probably hit the roof. Not your specifically, I'm just saying a boss.
No, yeah, I get it. It's true.
I've just you've flashed your Whoop at us. I've just ordered one, so I'm sort of, and
in the club.
Well, there we go.
I got 98% recovery off 6 hours sleep last night,
and whilst
I'm not dead.
I've got the Project Peak Performance Whoop Club, so any additional members are welcome to join. Just a little plug there.
Yeah, 100%. You'll see how hard me and James work every single day. You won't.
I think just for anyone that sort of hasn't, they're listening to this instead of maybe going through the whole episode. How I understood it was that there are 16 cycles of 90 minutes in a day, and basically at the end of those 90-minute periods, if you're up, I suppose, in phases 1 to 3, then you're needing some level of break or recovery moment to break that cycle. Phase 4 is nighttime. But yeah, I just thought if that can help people set out their day or adjust how they're doing things, 16 cycles of 90 minutes seems to be how to map out your 24-hour period.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the clock that we've put on, so the one that we put on, it's actually not in 90-minute cycles. It's in hour slots, just because it would have took loads of lines to add it, and I couldn't find one that did it in 90-minute cycles, in all honesty. So I adapted the one that I found and now made it 24 hours. But what you can do from there, if you look at it, so you've got 12 o'clock, and then obviously 6 either side. And you can literally split that into your quarters. And then what I'd look at is, for any of the listeners, one of the ways that I would be looking at doing this. So let's say you go to work, you've got to be at work at 9, you've got to leave it, let's say, 8 o'clock to get to work. I'd be looking there to be waking at around 6:30. So that's going to give you enough time in the morning to get any of the bits done, get maybe a bit of your own personal routine done, maybe look after the kids, do whatever it is. Look, we've all got stuff to do in the mornings. That's just human nature, that's life. But if you can set your time and give yourself time to do it, that's going to work. And then from the 6:30 point, if you work your cycles out backwards and you do, let's say, the 8 hours, that's going to give you that's going to let you know when you've got to go to sleep. Then what I'd be looking at is, okay, let's give yourself a little bit of a wind down time beforehand. You don't want to go straight from activity and blue light and everything else. Maybe give yourself half an hour to nod off. And that's the point that I would be going to bed. There's no massive, huge science behind this, and it's crucial to do it, but it's just going to help. It's a starting point for you to be able to start looking at how can you optimize your day. If you get your full sleep cycle in there, then you'll probably realize you won't need that much throughout the day, as long as you're getting sunlight in the first parts of your waking day. But if it's limited the amount of sleep in there, add a little bit in. If you're going out at nighttime and you're going to be spending a bit more energy at nighttime, add a little bit in the day to give yourself a bit of energy. So use that, use that as your currency. Use the sunlight and the rest points as your currency for time, of efficient time later on in the day. That's how I look at it. For anybody who is listening, if you go over to our group page on Facebook, that's where I put on the clock so that you can go down, it printed it off. It's A4, so you can print it off at your work printers or wherever you are at home, and you can start to make sure that you're putting in your anchor times and starting your sleep cycles properly, and then adding in the little snippets throughout the day. Snacking on sunshine. I'm gonna trademark that. I think that's mine now.
There's a song in there sometimes, isn't it?
There is, mate. There is. Snacking on sunshine.
There we go.
Cool. So before we wrap this up, guys, I don't want this one going on too long. I think these are great when they're nice short snippets for people to just pretty much take the gold away from it, what we heard. Is there anything else you want to add to it before we knock this one off?
There's so much more that could be added. There's so much in the episode itself, plus what we've digested there. I would just be keen to hear from our audience as to what their prime takeaway was, because I listen to most episodes and I'm like, okay, I want to refine that. I want to tweak that area of my life. So for me, it is about it being acceptable on days where, like Alex, I can't control what time my two children decide to wake up and what's appropriate. What I can do is introduce times in my day to get that meditation in, or as Dimitri would suggest, yoga nidra, which is another example of a very good one. That recovery that's short and sharp. So for me, it's about building that in, but I'd be keen to hear what the audience would like to tweak in their own lives to optimize their own sleep and recovery.
Amazing.
Yeah, I would just say, listen to the episode and put your own spin on it according to your requirements, because it is so unique to every individual. They'll, rather than just say, I'll be in bed from 10 till 6 and think that's going to be okay. I mean, I'll be out in evenings quite a lot and sneaking in, like trying to make sure everyone's asleep, lights are off, and just going straight into bed and thinking I'm just going to doze off, when actually I've come from like a lot, quite an active evening to then, you almost need that, as we say, that recovery time or bedding down period pre-sleep to get your body in that state to be able to have the best possible sleep. So yeah, loads of takeaways that I would take from it personally based on my life, but everyone's needs are going to be different. So I'd encourage people to listen to it, really think about how the phases would work in their life.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, with a bit of luck, we'll get loads of people telling us what their takeaways from this were. I think it's dead important. It's something I get asked a hell of a lot with regards to when you're coaching people, the sleep and the quality of recovery and everything. And like I say, for me, it was really opened up my eyes and just made me look at it completely differently to how I was before. It was literally black and white. It was like, I'm never ever thinking about it like that again. Now I understand a lot more about this. So yeah, guys, I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. This is going to be going live on the Facebook group first. We send them out on a Tuesday, and then if you want to listen to it over on our other channels, they'll be available on Friday. That's it for now. Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you all soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.